I really want to focus in on this idea of what it's like to set up a strategy as a local church, local civic, local network, business person, wherever you might find yourself. And there's a cascading series of questions that need to be asked so that we can come to grips with that what we want. We all have this inkling in our heart. We're nudged by our father to engage in the family business, and then also the idea that our father is building a family. We find that in the Great Commission that he's going to build that family of all nations, all tribes, all tongues. We see that throughout the Bible, and so we realize I'm starting here where I'm at. This is where I am. How do I draw a circle here and find myself engaged in the Great Commission activity where I live, learn, work, and play? And so I think the first question to ask and is what does the fulfillment of your dream look like? Um, what is the winning aspiration that you have? So when you think of, I really want to do this, I want this to happen, uh, those types of things, then all of a sudden you discover that yes, in fact, there are some things that do need to happen. And what are those things? I want to see people come to know Jesus. I want to see marriages healed. I want to see children stop being neglected. I want kids to grow up feeling the love of their mother and father. And in many ways, I want to see heaven come to earth where I live, where I learn, if I'm a teacher or a student, or where I work, or where I play. My gym, my pickleball league, my basketball league, my tennis, my golf club, my whatever, my sports team that my kids are on, whatever it might be. So in those spaces, I want what to happen. So I don't know if you see me, what's happening here, but there are two questions that are being asked here, and one is what do I want to happen? And so that is a learning process. You don't answer this question once. You start answering this question and you keep answering this question, especially as you're building a team, because part of attracting people to a team is talking about what you want to see happen. And when their hearts want to see the same thing happen, all of a sudden you find yourselves in the same space on a regular basis, praying together, dreaming together, uh, seeking to relate to the lost world around us together. All those kinds of things become a part of what we are and what we're trying to do. So, what is your winning aspiration? And then, where do I want that to happen? What is the space? You and I have a circle of influence. We have friends, families, associates, community people we know. We have all of these um, connections, this social network of people, and it might be thin. It's not really thick necessarily, but you have a lot of acquaintances. In fact, there's a sociologist by the name of Dunbar that developed this thing called the Dunbar number that says that the average person knows by name and is known by name by 150 people. So that is a circle of influence. There's no doubt we would like to see heaven come to earth. We would like to see this winning aspiration happen in that circle of influence. But the fact is that it's probably not. It's going to happen in a circle of accountability. So it's going to be a space where I am going to feel responsible for the lostness in that circle. So that circle might be a physical circle. It might be drawn on a map. It could be a neighborhood. It could be the 8 houses that are contiguous with my property. It could be my subdivision, you know, the 450 houses that sit in my subdivision. It could be something, but it's a circle, could be on a map, but it also could be a circle that is in the air. And by that, I mean, it could be the Thursday night Liberty Parks and Rec pickleball league that exists. Um, or it could be the local gym that I go to on a regular basis, or it could be my workspace. It could be where I go to work, my workmates. It could be a hobby that I have. I'm a car enthusiast, or I'm a taekwondo enthusiast, or I take some type of martial arts that we meet on a regular basis to practice and hone our skills. Or I could be in a book club, or it could be anything that shares an affinity with one another. And that affinity then might have the social capital that exists for the gospel to be able to be planted in there. And so if you see this cascade of questions that we're talking about right now, we're talking about, first of all, asking the question, what do I want to happen? What is the winning aspiration? When my dreams come true, if Jesus answered all of my prayers, what would it look like for this to happen? And so we need to keep that at the forefront of our minds, and we need to remind ourselves and we need to remind our teams of that on a regular basis. That is vitally important to make sure. So, what's my winning aspiration? What do I want to happen? Second, where? What is the space that we want this to happen in? And again, we're moving from circle of influence to circle of accountability. We really want to tighten this up because around that, most likely, God is going to allow you to build a team of people who not only share that winning aspiration, but also share that circle of accountability. They also want to see the heaven come to earth in that space. And so it's important here as we think about the habits cycle, as you begin to pray and ask God to give you a clearer picture of what you want to happen. You want marriages to be healed in that neighborhood. You want kids to grow up not addicted to devices, but for people not to have mental health issues. You want the health to flourish in these spaces and those kinds of things. You begin to pray for those kind of things, and you pray for this particular area, this circle. Now you've tightened up from a circle of influence to a certain kind. You pray for that particular area, and you begin to focus in on that type of thing. So the third question then, as we think about it, is how will we do it? And this is where the habit cycle comes in. It's what, in my estimation, gets plopped down, in this space right here. Is how will we do it? Well, we will do it by creating a culture of replication. And that culture of replication falls in love with the heart of the Father. It is stunned by the love that God has for us. And then it causes us to want to develop this relationship with God, this relationship that we often use the four-letter word pray with, but it's really more than that. It's about listening to God, hearing from Him, being impacted by Him, spending time with Him, and having His heart affect our eyes for our world. So now we walk around, and everywhere we look out there, we see that, in fact, we see our world the way the Father sees it, because His heart is moving into our eyes. And so we see the world as like a sheep. They're shepherdless. They wander to and fro, and they need desperately to be connected to their Father in heaven. So that idea of how will we do it? That's how we will do it. And then the fourth question that is really vital to this thing, and if you have any gifts of leading at all here, these are the kind of questions that need to be asked. It's like, okay, what capacities what capacities need to be existent for this to happen. And there are a number of different capacities. You're going to need people leading in different areas. You're going to need people leading in terms of prayer mobilization, in terms of training mobilization, coaching mobilization, strategy, thinking, okay, where are we not, and where do we go from here? The tactics on the ground, the logistics of things. You're going to need all kinds of capacities available for this. And so, if you think about this, if you've ever seen the seven hats diagram that I have, it kind of begins to allude to the fact. Now, I won't say that that's all you need, but the fact is that it's much of what you need to be able to sustain this aspiration that you have, and to keep the turning the cycle of the wheel moving forward. You need at least those seven, if not some of them. But and some of the tension that many of you will face if you're an initiator, if you're a starter, you probably feel like you've got these hats stacked on top of one another, and you feel the weight, the burden. It's difficult for you to be able to understand what that looks like and why that is and stuff. And it's because you've got all these things weighing down on you, and so a part of your prayer, a part of it, of asking the Father to help you is this idea of beginning to understand what it would look like for God to bring along some people, a prayer mobilizer, or to bring along, a training coordinator, or to bring along someone who's really gifted at coaching, or wants to build a coaching network to be able to sustain all of the discovery activity that you have going in that particular area. Um, so the idea, of what capabilities need to be, there are really critical, for you to think about and to keep up there. So this is a cascading series of questions, five questions, but I do want you to think about the fact that this is these questions are in a cycle. They're being repeatedly asked over time and answered. And so it's as if you have a sheet of paper and you've got five columns, and you're continually filling out your columns. It's never filled out completely. It's always a learning process. It's always a growing process. This is always moving from general to specific on a regular basis as you learn more and more, and get have more acute thinking about what God is wanting to do in your world. So, and then the fifth question, is what systems are required to sustain this? And so this is, if we think about in the fourth question, what capabilities there, you're going to have the capabilities of building a team there somehow on a regular basis. This thing that starts with maybe you and a few other people, and it continues to grow. It's going to have a fractal type piece to it. What the big picture looks like is really what the little picture looks like. So it's like a leaf on a tree, and you back up, and that leaf and the tree itself have a lot in common, similar structures. So the same thing's going to be true here. So you're going to have this capacity of team building. One of the systems is just going to be teams meeting on a regular basis. There's going to be the ability to sustain teams and understand teams, and realize that from the beginning of time, um, God has been involved. First of all, the Godhead, exists as a team, Father, Son, Spirit, and then they build a family, Adam and Eve, and that gets messed up. And so God starts over in many ways with Abraham, and he chooses a family, a tribe of people, through which to bless the world. And then when Jesus comes, he calls a team to himself. He has this crew of 12 men and their families who are drawn to him, who he invests his life in. And then Jesus, says, "Hey, look, I am going to build this thing called ecclesia, these called out ones. I'm going to build these redemptive outposts that are going to then in turn take this message to the entire world." And so Jesus lives, dies, and rises again. And as his disciples scatter, all of a sudden, these redemptive platforms, these ecclesias, sometimes mistakenly referred to as churches in the Western world, but these redemptive platforms of gospel planting that generate a viral type of gospel that move from family to family and village to village and town to town and just begin to penetrate, different places generationally. And so there's got to be this idea of building and sustaining teams, developing curriculum, thinking in terms of what do we do as you're building this small little team. Ultimately you're gonna either build or acquire tools and disseminate or distribute them, train on them, help people understand that a training system has to be in place, a prayer system has to be in place. And saying the word system on the back of that might seem somewhat odd, but I'm just talking about a rhythm. There's a prayer rhythm. There's a training rhythm. There is a pulse that goes into lostness through discovery, and so there's a training and equipping and continuing to give people the vision for reaching their lost friends, neighbors, workmates through this idea. So there's a whole host of things, and at some point, maybe it grows, and you're going to need to manage money as disciples uh, start discovery groups multiply into churches and churches begin to follow Jesus. There's always going to be the issue of money. That is, God called us to steward our resources. And so it might be that collectively you figure out some way to do something about that and begin to pool that money. It may be that there are needs to move people whose majority work is now involved in coaching and strategy and helping the network continue to expand and plant these hubs that are the outposts of the network as it moves out. And so people have to move from earning their living, working for a city or working for a company, but they now earn their living doing this full time. And the network then supports them. So a system of finances has to be put in place in different places. So, but at its uh, minimum, catalyzing uh, disciple making into the lost and coaching that movement into the lost are two critical systems that have to start to be in place almost at the very beginning as we begin to see the gospel be planted. And if we want it to replicate, there's got to be that idea of coaching that comes along with the catalyzing. So we've got these five questions or five cascading questions that get us to a basic strategy. And bound up in it is a little bit of tactic, but this is basically some choices that we're making. We're deciding to do some things and not to do other things. And so a strategy is basically a system of choices that helps us understand how we allocate our resources. And I'm a resource, you're a resource. Our time, our daily schedule is a resource. Obviously, the money that God gives us is a resource. The relationships that we have are a resource. So how do we allocate all of these resources toward things is vitally important to understanding things. So as a disciple maker, and as I began to understand I want to make disciples, I've got to think in terms of, okay, this is a team sport. Where is my team, and what is this going to look like? And so we just begin to start ask some questions. You don't have to have all the answers all the blanks filled in at first. It will be a progressive revelation of things, but there are these categories, five cross, and then categories of slow realization. What is our winning aspiration? What is it that God has called us to do? What's our mandate from God? And where is then our circle of accountability, not just our influence, but where is it that we want to take this aspiration and we want to see it come to fruition, right here. And then how are we going to do it? What is going to be our unique um, way of winning at this? And I would suggest, that it's going to be obedience based, discovery focused, replicative disciple making. So it's going to be this way of seeing the gospel be catalytic. That is, it cannot happen without you, but it must never depend on you. So it's moving from you to someone else and to someone else and to someone else. And so having grandchildren, spiritual grandchildren in your world is becoming normal, your normal Jesus experience in this life. And so how does it happen? Well, it happens, turning the habits wheel, turning the habits wheel, just continuing to move into building a new culture of replication, new language, new habits that will ultimately lead to replication of the gospel being normal in the lives of believers. And then what capabilities do we need to sustain this? And again, a lot of tools that go along with this. If you haven't seen some of these, you can pick up the Habits Toolkit. You can find it at newgenerations.network. And you discover a lot of these different tools, but the seven hats diagram is a suggestive diagram of what capabilities we need to be developing together. Because if you're again starter, you're feeling I've got multiple hats here, I'm wearing, and you feel heavy and it's hard. It's really hard, and it is. I'll tell you, it really is hard. But it's what it takes, to be able to see, because God tends to pour His vision through people. And he's maybe pouring it through you to be able to see the gospel take root and replicate where you live, learn, work, or play. And then finally, what systems need to be available, to be able to sustain this, because this is a hub. You're building a hub of activity, and a hub of activity is ultimately going to be this mesh network of relationships and thinking that allows the gospel to expand in different spaces geographically and different spaces sociologically and affinities, and allows it to move from person to person to person, and then stay connected and then be sustained over time, so that this thing, as it expands and it moves out and replicates, it is sustainable uh, for its entire existence until Jesus comes again. So those are the five fundamental questions of strategy that I wanted to give to you today, and I hope it's helpful. If you're interested in more, just go ahead and hit the like button, or the join button, or whatever button we might have there, and love to have you interact about it. So thanks so much. Appreciate the time.